Because many people think selling is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. And by the way, that's not selling. That's called being a thief. Okay? No, that's not selling. Selling, by definition, is simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires and helping them to get it.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. This is your host, Eric Malzone, and this is episode number 167. I get to talk to Bob Burg. So he is the author of many books, but most notably co-author of The GoGiver, which I believe is one of the best business books of all time. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that and Bob in a second, but I do have a quick favor. If you can just take 1 minute, hit pause and go to helpmypodcast.com and fill out a short survey. Now that 2019 is kind of coming to a close, I'm looking for ways to improve the show in 2020 and offer more value to you, the GoGiver way, of course. And your feedback is crucial. So it's just five or six quick questions. Go to helpmypodcast.com and fill out the survey. We greatly appreciated. And back to Bob. So, man, what a treat. I give the GoGiver to a lot of people. I gift that book to a lot of people. And it's an amazing parable about how to do business and really just how to live your life, just to live a higher quality of life and have more impact and give more value. That's it. And the story is amazing. Bob's insights, he summarizes a lot of it. And we talk about how it's relatable to the fitness industry and essentially how to make more money by doing it the right way. And it's super excited to get this out there. So I'm just going to let her rip. This podcast is also brought to you by Level 5 Mentors, www.level5mentors.com. If you are an entrepreneur looking to achieve the highest levels of freedom in health, time, money, relationships, and purpose, then the guys and gals at level5mentors.com can certainly help if you're stuck. So go book a call. Also, it's brought to you by certifiedcoursecreation.com. So if you are someone who has a great idea for a online accredited certification and you think it's time for you to get to the next level, we would love to talk to you. So go to certifiedcoursecreation.com. Now, without further ado, let's get on to the meat of the podcast. It was so awesome. Thank you, Bob, for coming on. Episode number 167, Bob Burg. And we are live. Mr. Bob Burg, thank you.
Eric, great to be with you.
Yeah, this is really exciting for me personally. And before we get into some of the amazing questions and topics that we have, I just want to ask my listeners, for the end of the year in 2019, if you could just go to helpmypodcast.com and fill out a short survey, that will help me improve the show next year in 2020. I would greatly appreciate it. So helpmypodcast.com. And okay, on to the interview. So Bob, I surveyed my colleagues, my business partners, one of my Facebook groups saying, hey, I have the opportunity to interview Bob here, the author of The GoGiver and many other books. What kind of questions would you want answered? Right. And I got some interesting answers. One of which I think is most people want to know your backstory. Like, how did this whole thing come into play? How did you construct what I consider one of the best business books ever?
Wow. Thank you.
Right. How did it come to fruition?
Okay. I'll give you the hopefully short story. Okay. It was basically like this. I began as a broadcaster, first in sports on radio and then television news. And I got into television news because it was the only place I could get into television. Figured I'd segue into sports before long, but found out that I really wasn't very good at the whole news thing. And it wasn't long before I was, graduating into sales, as I like to say. And I knew nothing about sales. And so I floundered for the first few months. I mean, not only did I not know anything about it, I had no formal training, but the training at the company where I was working was, we'll say, negligible, meaning non-existent. So I floundered. And finally, though, and this was great, I was in a bookstore. This is almost 40 years ago now. And I came across a sales section. Now, I got to tell you, Eric, this surprised me. I didn't realize there would be a sales section in a bookstore. I didn't realize sales teaching or training was even a thing. I knew nothing about it. And there were a couple books in there. One was by Tom Hopkins. One was by Zig Ziglar. And I picked them up. I brought them home, and I just immersed myself in them. I mean, I was studying and highlighting and taking notes and practicing. And I got to tell you, within a few weeks, my sales began to go through the roof. Why? Because I now had a methodology to follow, a system, if you will. And to this day, I define a system as simply the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired result of B, then you know that by doing A and continuing to do A and continuing to do A, you're going to get the desired results of B. And every single person watching this knows that because you all teach a system. You know, someone comes to you with a certain goal in mind, and you have the expertise to take them through a system that's going to help them get the results they want, thus adding immense value to their lives. So I followed a sales system. Now, what I also discovered by being in sales was it wasn't just about the sales. It was about personal development. It was about learning how to improve yourself and build yourself from within, understanding that then the results, the successful results manifest on the outside, but we've got to put in that great information. So I started reading all the books that were taught back then to read, you know, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and The Magic of Thinking Big, and Think and Grow Rich, and As Men Thinketh, and Psycho-Cybernetics, and all those great books, which are still some of my favorite books today. And I just went on a quest to learn. I was a horrible student in school. I barely graduated high school, got into college on academic probation, and I'm pretty sure I graduated on academic probation. And I just never, but my education really began when I got into sales. Yeah. I just loved it. Eventually worked my way up to sales manager of a company, and I started teaching others what was working for me, began speaking on the topic. My first book was called Endless Referrals. The subtitle was Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. And it was a book for entrepreneurs and salespeople who loved what they did. They knew they brought great value to the table, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable with the process of cultivating the relationships within their communities that could lead to the know, like, and trust that would have people want to do business with them directly and refer them to others. So my book was a system on how to do that. But I'd always read business parables and always enjoyed them very much. I loved how with a very short story, you could kind of really connect with someone on a heart level. And in this case, I was always the reader and always loved reading them and learning from them, and you could apply the information. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take the basic premise of the book Endless Referrals, which is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust, and turn that into a parable. So I said, well, so what, entitling it, what is the basic essence of a person who is able to both quickly and sustainably develop those kind of relationships? And what it came down to is they were always giving value to others, looking to make people's lives better, and so called it the GoGiver. Now, the best thing I did for the book was asking John David Mann, who I knew as he was the editor-in-chief of a magazine I was writing for, asking him to be my co-author and the lead writer storyteller. He's a great storyteller. As you can tell, I'm a how-to person, or I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. So John and I collaborated on that, and that's basically how the GoGiver came about.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. I think one of the first books I read that was a parable that was, I'm sure you've read it, was Who Moved My Cheese? And I was like, what an effective way to get across messaging.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. That was and Spencer Johnson, who wrote it, when we wrote the GoGiver, when we were looking for really, some big names to, promote the book. And fortunately, there were some good people that really got behind it, but we didn't know Dr. Johnson at the time. I never actually met him. John did. And for the second book in the series, Go-Givers Sell More, he actually did the front quote for it. And it was funny because in the original quote on the first book, on the Go-Giver, it's now been revised. But on the first one, David Bach, who wrote the great book, The Automatic Millionaire, he gave us a great blurb that said, "This is the best parable since Who Moved My Cheese," or something like that.
That's awesome.
And then the author Who Moved My Cheese ended up. And then the funny thing is, John David Mann ended up writing a parable with David Bach called The Latte Factor, which is a wonderful, wonderful book.
I don't know it.
Yeah. So it's funny how these things work, isn't it?
Yeah, it is funny. It is funny. It's, and I, in my career, my first 10 years after college was in sales, various forms of sales. I sold a lot of things. And, I wish I actually didn't come across your book until I went into business for myself. I wish I had back in sales, because I read all of the, how to close, how to deal with, pushbacks, things like that. And I was like, God, it never felt, one of your raws, it never felt authentic to me, right? Like looking for ways to tell people that they're wrong and they should buy from you, right? Like dealing with objections 101. And then I came across your book. It was very different. Did you ever think, when you started writing the book, did you ever think it would have the ripple effect that it does now?
Well, I think we did believe there was a market for it, certainly.
Sure.
But I don't know if you ever know that a book is going to go as big as it does when that happens. And it's really, I think, the reason it did. And this surprised us, but of course, in retrospect, it's never a surprise, because it's easy to look backwards and see where things make sense. But the early adopters, if you will, of the GoGiver were the already very successful people who had been living their lives and conducting their businesses in this way since long before we wrote the book. Because none of the principles in there are particularly new, right? There were no new fundamentals, as Jim Rohn used to say, right?
Yeah.
And so we may have put them in a certain way that were relatable and entertaining and so forth, but nothing new. So lots of people are. So what happened was, we would be getting emails from people who were, and I'm talking about really major leaders, and who would say, "This is what I've been trying to tell people, but people don't believe me that you can do business this way." And right. And so what happened is, we're having books buying hundreds and thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of books to go through their organizations. Well, then the next kind of wave of adopters were the people who were either given the book or were told about the book from someone who they respected, who were already successful. So I think that's why it took off as it did. And then it found a market, really, because people were ready for a message that you can be, as you were saying, when you sometimes were taught sales in certain ways, it didn't feel congruent with your values.
Yes.
And I think most of us, as human beings, most of us and I think we're programmed this way. We want to make a difference. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We want to find a unique way to bring value to the world around us. Okay. And it tends to be something we really believe in. Now, again, everyone who's watching this, listening to this, you feel not only a desire, a responsibility to make people healthier, to help people become more confident, feel better about themselves, live longer, be more effective, look better, right? And right? And so when we're able to focus on the value that we're providing others and allow ourselves to receive the fruits of that labor, which is also very important, okay? That's where, success in terms of financial comes in terms of personal, in terms of physical, in terms of mental, emotional, social, and all those things. It's also why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value, right? Which means if we're really focused on bringing value to those around us, value to the marketplace, and we place the focus there first, we create this context for success. Right? And the money we receive is simply a natural result of the value we've provided. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I think it's better that you summarize the 5 principles. So just like people have an idea before we kind of dive into how that relates to the fitness and health industry. Can you just guide us through the 5 principles?
Sure. Well, the 5 principles themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The law of value says your true worth, in the business sense, of course, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, this can sound counterintuitive, like give more in value than I take in payment. That sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy, not abundance. And so we just have to understand the difference between price and value, right? Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth to another human being that they will willingly exchange their money and time and energy and so forth for this thing, and be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. So let's say, for example, you own a gym. And again, I know there's people who do all sorts of things in the field, but let's just say you own a gym, you own a health club, what have you, and you have a member. Well, this member pays X amount of dollars a month, but what value? And that's the payment, right? That's the price, and you make a profit from that. But what's the value they receive for that monthly investment? Okay, again, they get in better shape. They're able to be more productive at work, where they probably make more money than they would have. They have more energy. They have more confidence. They feel better. They look better. They're able to be a better example to their family. So they get much more in value than what they're paying, right?
Yes.
But you still make a very healthy profit, which you should. Now, that's the first law. The second law is the law of compensation. And this says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number one says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number two tells us the more people whose lives you touch with that exceptional value, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. As Nicole, the CEO in the story, told Joe, the protege, law number one, the law of value, represents your potential income. Law number two, which represents the impact you make, the number of lives you touch, that represents your actual income. So exceptional value plus significant reach equals very high compensation, which is why you need to be selling memberships, right? It's why that's why the more people you have in your business, paying that in monthly investment, the more money you're going to make. That's why referrals and word of mouth and recommendations are so important. And so, because it's a much easier, faster, quicker way to be able to serve more people with the exceptional value you provide. And that's why we're such big believers in referral-based business. Law number three is the law of influence. And this says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, sounds counterproductive at best, and maybe even downright Pollyanna-ish at worst. But then you think about it. The greatest leaders, top influencers, highest money earning people, it's how they run their lives, how they conduct their businesses. They're always looking for ways to make other people's lives better, more fulfilling. But let me qualify this though too. This is very important because I think it can easily be misunderstood.
Yeah.
When we say place the other person's interest first, Eric, we don't mean you should ever be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not at all. It's simply, as Joe, the protege, learned from several of the mentors in the story, the golden rule of business, the golden rule of sales is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely and authentically moving from what we call an I focus or me focus to an other focus. Looking to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, to make your win all about the other person's win. And as you do this and become known for doing this within your community, you'll become that center of influence. You'll become that person who people feel so good about and have so much trust for, and who, that people will become your personal walking ambassadors. And when this happens, now your business becomes a lot more fun, a lot less stressful, and a lot more profitable. Law number 4 is the law of authenticity. And this says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And one of the mentors, Deborah in the story, Deborah Davenport, shared a lesson she learned, that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are all very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you, as we like to say, show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. They know you. They like you. They love you. They trust you. They want to be a part of your life, a part of your business. They want to refer business to you. They want to have your back and look out for you. And, that's why it's so important to really kind of act congruently with that which you value. And then law number 5 is the law of receptivity. And this is so important. It brings it home. And that is that the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And what we're talking about here is understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, but you've also got to breathe in. It's not one or the other. We breathe out carbon dioxide. We also breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving, and we breathe in, which is receiving. Contrary to the messages we receive from the world around us. And generally it's from childhood through schooling and environment and everything you watch on TV and the news. The messages we get from the world around us about money, prosperity, abundance, they're not mixed messages. They're very negative messages.
They are.
And what happens is all these negative messages affect us on an unconscious level below the surface. And we don't actively even understand this. But a lot of times, we associate making money with doing something wrong. When, of course, in a free market, when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. And let's face it, anyone who's listening to this or watching this right now, no one's going to buy from you or join or become a client or member or what have you. They're not going to do it because you have a quota to meet, right? They're not going to do it because you need the money or even because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's the only reason why anyone should buy from you or from me or from anyone else. And in a free market-based environment, again, no one has to buy from us. So it's incumbent upon us to focus on them. When you've done this and you've provided this exceptional value, you deserve to receive. You should receive. Okay? But we need to embrace that. So giving and receiving are not opposite concepts, right? It's not, are you a giver or a receiver? No, they're two sides of the very same coin. You are a giver and a receiver. Now, the focus is on the giving. The focus is on the bringing of value, the giving of value. Absolutely. And as you've done that, and you've created that what we call benevolent context for success we were talking about earlier, you need to allow yourself to receive. So I'm going to suggest you making a study of prosperity. Get the Randy Gage prosperity blog or podcast. Read Randy's books on prosperity. Read Bob Proctor's books on prosperity. Read David Nagel's book on prosperity. And and there are others out there who do this because we get the negative garbage we get in our mind. What do you see all the time in terms of business? What they show you, what you see is Enron. What you see is Tyco. What you see is what's the bank that was selling the opening new account, falsely opening new accounts?
Was it Wells?
Wells Fargo, right? Yeah. Or you hear about Volkswagen falsifying their emissions tests. Okay, those are bad things, and they rightly should be reported. But what you don't ever see as a lead story? CEO treats people well. Salesperson goes over and above to help their customer. And I guarantee you that happens a lot more, but it doesn't sell. Yeah. So start questioning premises. When you see someone who's very, very, very wealthy and you hear people talking down about them, don't just accept it that, point blank that, there's something wrong here. No, question the premises. Ask, why does this person say this? What did this person really do? How did this person make their money? Was it through, finagling government, through cronyism and paying off politicians to make special rules? Or was it they found a way to bring immense value to the lives of a whole lot of people?
Yeah.
And so again, it's where we put our focus. And so, make a study of prosperity because the garbage comes in naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, thank you for that summary. That was very, it was powerful. And I reflect on my colleague, business partner, mentor, Ken Andruko, has done quite well for himself financially. He very much lives by the GoGiver principles. And I asked him, similar to, I think what Joe asked Pindar in the book was, why are you still doing this? Like, he could be retired. Like, why are you still doing? He's like, I don't know. I just do it. It's what I like to do. I like to go out and help people and listen to people, find ways to help them, creatively. And it's just an interesting thing when you start to see people come across and when you actually see it in fruition, like what it can be. And I think, and this will maybe dovetail into what we talked about before recording, is that I think a big challenge for a lot of people when they read your book, is belief that if they do these principles, everything will work out. Right. Yeah. And I think that can be, especially in the fitness industry, fitness and health industry, where people, and I think you referred to as a healing arts, where people are, they're just not making a lot of money, Bob. Mm-hmm. A lot of them aren't making money. They're burning out. I think the average lifespan of a personal trainer is 8 years, right? Because they're trading time for money, and they're just not making it the way they hoped. What's your messaging to that?
Well, there's a couple things. One is, does this work? Well, yeah, but not because of anything John David Mann and I experimented with in writing it. I mean, these are time-proven principles. This is, if you go back and you look at anyone from wherever there's been a market-based economy, people have always done these things. Now, they didn't always know they were doing it. Some people did it intuitively. But yeah, it's something that's been proven. This is how. Plus, and that was one of the great things about so many people writing to us, to telling us this is how they built their business. It didn't surprise us. It surprised us that they wrote, but it didn't surprise us that that's how it's done, because we've seen too many people who've done it. We've built our own businesses doing these same things. So no, it works if you work it. That's not the issue. But you brought up a great point too, that so many in the healing arts do burn out and they don't make a lot of money, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back mainly to, what are your beliefs about yourself, about the value you provide, and about money? Because a lot of times people in the healing arts have but I love what I do, I shouldn't be making money. Right? Now, question that premise.
All the time.
Question that premise. Why? Why is it that because you love something, that you shouldn't equate that with making a lot of money from it? Well, because when you were in school, you hated going to school for 5 days and having 2 weeks off. Did maybe you see your parents go to a job for, 5 days that they hated, and then they lived for the weekend? And I'm not saying that's the case, but maybe just the whole environment around. Is it something that in your mind, or from watching TV, or from what did you see that basically most people struggled and they didn't like what they did? So you're assuming that if you can only get paid for doing things you don't like to do. Question that premise. Okay. So if you are providing immense value to others, which, by the way, you need to understand that you are providing immense value to others.
Very much.
When that's the case, and you can communicate that value, now you can be charging more money than what you were charging before. You don't have to play the low price game, but instead you're positioning yourself as that trusted resource. Hey, when you sell on low price, unless your last name is Walmart, okay, or Amazon.com, selling on low price is not a good way to do business. You've seen it's not fun, it's not productive, it's not profitable, and it's certainly not sustainable. That's why people burn out. When you sell on high value, now you're positioned as a resource. And so, that's really the name of the game. So please don't just accept that you should be struggling and so forth. Instead, no, you should be doing what you're doing and bringing in a very healthy income.
Yeah. It's interesting when I've worked with a lot of fitness professionals. I mean, the gyms that I owned in California were never the lowest price in the area by far, and we were tempted many times because, other competitors would come in the market and they would just lowball, and you're like, well, maybe we should drop our price. Like, nope, Never. We're only going up. In fact, we're going to increase rates now. Now, the thing is most people are like, well, yeah, I'll increase my rates, but how do I justify that rate? And I think just by simply saying like, this is how much I'm going to be worth, and then you feel compelled to make that value hit the mark.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so communicating value is very, very important. How do we communicate value? Well, first, we become that additional value, right? So because most of the gyms can accomplish the same thing. Most personal trainers can, you all have the system, you all know how to do it, right? So it's a matter of from the moment you meet a new person, okay, through the relationship building process, through the sales process, the referral process, the follow-up and the follow-through, everything that happens, you want to be communicating value. Now, remember, value is always in the eyes of the beholder. So it's always focusing on that. When you think about it, what is sales? Well, sales is simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires and helping them to get it. That's what selling is.
Can you repeat that one more time? Because that is one of the most popowerful things I think fitness professionals
can hear. And before I repeat it, let me just say this. A lot of times people, again, in the healing arts, don't like that, say, well, I don't like selling. And I'm going to tell you, it's not that they don't like selling. They don't like what they think selling is. Because many people think selling is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. And by the way, that's not selling. That's called being a thief. Okay? No, that's not selling. Selling by definition is simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires and helping them to get it. The old English word, the old English root of the word sell was selan, which meant to give. So when you're selling, you're literally giving. Now someone can say, wait a second, isn't that just semantics? I don't think so. Let's say you're at the point where either someone comes into your gym about a membership or you're talking to somebody about coaching or whatever it happens to be, and you're in the presentation aspect, if you will. You are selling. When you're selling, what are you giving? I suggest you're giving that person time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and most of all, extraordinary value. So you should be proud of selling your services. But in terms of building that value, you're building that value from the first time you meet that person through the entire process. How? Well, through excellence, which is knowing, which is competency, and understanding that competency and being able to relate that in a way that the other person doesn't feel they're being spoken down to, but that you're, again, educating them and helping them to understand the benefits. But remember, discovering what it is through conversation, what they're looking for. It's through consistency. It's showing up the same way all the time so people know who they're dealing with, and that makes people feel good, makes people feel safe. Attention to detail, looking at that person not as a member or a client or what have you, but as a human being and getting to really know that person on a personal level. There's that empathy. It's understanding this person may have some feelings about, going to a gym or being trained or whatever because they don't feel good about themselves physically, and they get right. It's being able to communicate with empathy, and it's gratitude, it's appreciation, it's living with a sense of gratitude, which is very attractive to others. How else do you communicate value? By having other people who are your ecstatic clients do really nice informal videos of you that you can have on your, by showing before and after pictures with a nice written testimonial. By Joe Polish, who's one of the greatest copywriters in direct response people today, he has a great saying I've always loved. He says, what other people say about you is infinitely more believable than what you say about you. So let other people say it. And so the more testimonials you have, the more you can, but you always show it to the people in a way that allows them to kind of see it for themselves. And it's not you saying it, it's the other. It's having tools, or it's having something that they can get a little bit of a taste of what they receive in value so that it helps them to feel comfortable with you. There's all sorts of ways. It's introducing people to one another and being a connector of others. It's asking someone who you meet at an event somewhere in town, saying to them, "Hey, I always love connecting good people with other good people. How can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good client for you?" Now, instead of you talking about your business, you've asked them a question that says to them, "Wow, this is a real quality person." It's introducing them to. So there's all these ways we can be that additional value.
That's awesome. Well, Bob, I want to respect your time, and I could sit here and ask you questions all day, but I think we both have engagements to get to. So, yeah, man, and thank you. I think it's really, there's so much for fitness professionals to unpack here, and it's so valuable in the mindset and the shift that people can have, and it can happen like that. And I was asked in a recent podcast that because I'm kind of known as a little bit of a networker and connector within the industry. Mm-hmm. And people say, well, how do you build a network? I'm like, well, it's not that hard. You just go help somebody.
Yeah,
that's it. Absolutely. That's it. I'm like,
right.
It's not this complicated system to come up with. I just looked for ways to help people, and that's it.
That's perfect.
That's it.
That's tweetable.
Yeah. All right. So you have some stuff coming up. You have a conference, right? Endless Referrals.
Yeah. It's a 2-day workshop in Orlando, Florida in January. Orlando's always a nice place to go in January. But it's called Endless Referrals, the GoGiver Way. And we're only having 50 people there. So it's going to be very hands-on. So it's going to be 2 days of interactive and lots of teaching. So if somebody's really interested in accelerating their referral-based business, it's something they can look into. It's at endlessreferrals.com if they'd like more information.
That's great. And of course, your books, you can find your books everywhere. So,
sure.
Bob, thank you again. I really appreciate it. This was a very fun and special interview for me because, I try to embody everything that you wrote in your book. So
I think you do. And you were doing it long before the book came out. So thank you so much for all you're doing.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Burg. Hey, fitness fans, don't leave yet. It's your host, Eric Malzone. And I have a quick favor to ask. Actually, 3 favors. So number 1, if you're a fan of our show, I ask you to do something that takes under 3 minutes. Go to iTunes, please, and subscribe to our show. Please, please, please. It means so much to us. It's so important. And then give us a favorable review. We would really, really appreciate it. And I can't tell you how much it means and helps us out. So I know it takes 2 minutes of your day, and it means a lot to us. So please do that. Number 2, go to our YouTube channel, our Fitness Marketing Alliance, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel there. Number 3, if you like this episode or any of the episodes that we've released, share it on social. That's huge. That's a big deal for us. And we put a lot of work into these episodes, trying to give you great, actionable content for the fitness industry. So that would mean a lot. And that's it. So we have some big plans coming up for this show. I'll be talking about that in the next couple episodes. But thank you so much for listening. It means so much. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from everybody. Eric, ERIC, at fitnessmarketingalliance.com.